Hello, Judy.
Hello, Patty. How are you?
I am well today. It's always good to see you. So, Judy, today we're getting real. Today's topic is: have you stopped living in order to stay married?
Oh my God, could nail on the head. Keep going.
So, in my business, I hear a lot of reasons, right? Why you married? Then you get the blindsided divorce stories too, where they go, oh, I was blindsided. And then I come to find out that literally they haven't been living their life for 15, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's such an important question to ask because, when we unpeel the onion, and I'm sure you've seen this in your practice as well, when we unpeel the onion, they kind of knew. They kind of knew there were all kinds of right
Yes.
telltales, and they lost their identity. They forgot who they are inside, and so I wanted to bring that up as our topic today. And I know that you have a lot of input here because in your business you actually have to get down to these details, right, in order to help them get to a conflict resolution.
It comes out immediately. I mean, you so hit the nail on the head on that one because you have to treat people gently. Whatever they tell you at the beginning, you have to be very gentle with them. They're tender, they're scared, but they had a lot of courage to at least make the phone call and start having the conversation, even though they might not be ready right now to file. And so, an example is clear to me that the first one that came to mind, it was a few years ago. The woman was crying. She had just gotten served with divorce papers. And she first was saying, I was blindsided. Your word, perfectly chosen. I was blindsided. I didn't know what was happening. Somebody just came to the house and served me, and I just listened. And as I let her just go and talk and breathe, I asked one question. I said, so any therapy along the way? And then everything came out. It wasn't a good marriage ever. But what was blindsided was they hadn't talked about the initiation. And you really have to have a conversation before you initiate a divorce for one person to do it without the other person knowing it's going to take place. It's putting up problems, roadblocks, expenditure of money that you just don't have to go through if you can have the conversation. To the further point of have you stopped living in order to stay married, that is so near and dear to my heart because how many people have come through the office and have come into your coaching world where they stayed together for the kids? They stayed together because there were no divorces in the family. They stayed together because culturally it's just not accepted to be divorced. And so they do their best
Yeah.
and they really intend for it to be their best. But as we know, as we get older, life is so short. You just have to live a happy life if you can. So life is a journey. Everything we go through, we learn from. But at the point, and I'd love to hear how you work with your clients, but at the point where it becomes untenable,
Mm-hmm.
that you just can't breathe anymore, you're not having any fun, you're dreading getting up in the morning, you're not yourself during the day. Yes, you do have to move forward. You do have to acknowledge that change has to happen in your life, but do it through conversation. That's what I say. Don't do it unilaterally so that the other person feels blindsided. So, how do you have that conversation?
Well, typically, too, when they're coming to me, they've already decided to split, right? But I'll tell you, it's some of the reasons why. This is where I get into it with them, right? Some of the reasons why they avoid the discussion. Sometimes, Judy, you have two professionals that have busy lives. And like you said, and then if they have a family, no one wants to upset the apple cart. And what I have found sometimes triggers it is one of them has like an existential crisis, or where all of a sudden they say, I'm not living my purpose, right? Or they're something's got to give here. They're not being fulfilled.
One of them's gone to a leadership class at their company, and it's really affected them in a way that they really
Yep.
know they have to change their life,
Yep.
right?
Something is true. Something touched their heart. And when something touches your heart, you wake up. And what happens is because of they've become accustomed to the non-communication.
Oh, good
And
point.
so it's out of fear. People think that it's malicious. I find that most blindsided divorces is actually out of fear. They
Agreed.
think, you know what, if I try, because they've lost the ability to communicate effectively with each other. And it's just, oh no, it's going to be worse if I announce it. So I need to, plus, there's societal and environmental pressures and, beliefs around divorce that people say, right, get ready for a
Right.
fight. So they think it's a good quote unquote defense, when you and I both know, no, it's a first step against great communication, right? It's actually a
Yes.
step backwards when you do that and not make an attempt to communicate. And, my biggest advice for them is remember why you first got together. Find that one little inlet of forgiveness that you can have, where, why do you love this person? Even if it's that you share a child together. I don't care if you think they're a good parent or not, but do you made that child together, and
Yeah.
that little inlet, you need to start with the emotion and find a level of forgiveness so that you can then resolve the conflict.
All right, so I completely agree with you that it's generally out of fear. It's not malicious. And most people do things out of fear. If they're not fearful, then yes, you have a good path forward.
Yeah.
So the question then becomes, how do we help them before the filing? How do we get to people before the filing starts so we can deal with their fear and show them a better way? That's my dilemma.
Well, it's really comes down to emotional intelligence and learning to recognize. So, what I always look at, what's distracting you and what's got you frustrated.
Okay.
And that's your inside work. If something has you distracted or frustrated, you want to answer those questions. And from there, because you can't change, basically they need a change in the style of communication, or they've had no communication, right? It's been
True.
very surface, right? No deep conversations. They've lost that deep connection. So you need to find a way to get that, at least on a communication level. Can you get that connection back to where you are able to listen? Because when you listen, you actually hear what they're saying they need. And it's usually not what they're, guessing, right? They get to a level of expectation and they start forming false beliefs. And so, yeah, it's step one is an awareness of where you're at, right? What are your expectations? And you have to ask yourself, am I able to listen to what they want? And what happens is when a communication in a marriage falls apart, Judy, as you know, is both parties have stopped listening. And when they have a conversation, one is speaking, the other one's already conjuring up a quote unquote defense in the head.
Yeah, somebody that I was interviewing on the podcast recently said, listen with curiosity.
Yeah, I
And,
love
and
that.
that resonated with me. Listen with curiosity instead of what you just said, which is normal, listening with the defense being formulated as you talk. So let's just say a divorce has been filed for, the other person's been served, they feel blindsided. Perhaps that can then turn around into, let's talk. Okay, I know this is what you want, and yes, if we had a great marriage, we wouldn't you wouldn't have felt the need to do that. But that in and of itself can be the trigger to talk. It's never too late to talk,
I agree.
ever.
It's what's your intention? What
Yeah,
is your intention? A fight, or is your intention to, treat each other respectfully towards a conflict resolution?
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it.
no, that's it.
Right.
Do you intend to resolve? Because you had said this about a week or so ago to me. Do you intend to resolve or do you intend to fight? And
Yeah.
so, yes, it is all about the intention. And honestly, I don't think anybody really wants to fight. Who wants to fight? You
No.
just don't know any differently.
Ex- exactly. Well, and I always ask clients, what's your belief about divorce? What do you believe about it, and how do you think it's going to go down? And right. And if
Yes.
they go right into, oh, I heard it's a fight. Um, and no, truthfully, it's a negotiation. It's a negotiation that involves that is can't be you can't you negotiate with your emotions. You need to treat your emotions first, as you know.
As you know, go through that
Then
emotional uncoupling before you file.
exactly. And then you listen effectively and communicate towards a resolution. And it's totally
Because,
possible.
and then to circle back to, have you stopped living to stay divorced, to stay married? You can really both start living better. Once that
Absolutely the truth.
communication starts, you can both start living better and thank each other for the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a client that was a business owner, and she came to me for a glass ceiling issue. She wanted to grow her business, and she was quite successful. And I'll never forget, she called me one day and said, "You saved my marriage." The work she did on herself made her communicate differently. And her husband, who were not getting along, she was out earning him and subconsciously punishing him for that. And when she shifted her communication, they remembered why they loved each other, and all of the stuff that was going on in her head disappeared. He ended up flourishing and working, and her business is growing. So I know for a fact it can save your marriage if you have this one awareness that you have chosen to stop living in order to stay married. You can actually flip it around before one partner gets frustrated and just says, okay, out of fear, I need to cut and run. And
So,
instead you can meet them where they're at.
yeah, so in some cases, you can start living to stay married.
And stay
That could,
married.
that could
And
be
yes, exactly. Well put.
point solved. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Judy. Good talking to you.
Always.